guys, it's Danny. Alrighty, today we're gonna have a story time type of video. Today it is the time for my Dendrobium Polar Fire and his story in my orchid history. The Polar Fire is actually a pretty special orchid to me because it just happens to be my very first Dendrobium Phalaenopsis type or bigibbum type, however you want to call them, back in 2013. I actually remember when I purchased him. Just for the funsies, I will share it with you. It was around St. Valentine's. And I wasn't in the happiest of moods because I was not with my boyfriend, my current boyfriend. Yes, we were together back then as well, but he was here and I was back in Romania. So I wasn't the happiest, let's say, around that period. And to cheer myself up, I went for some orchid shopping because I already had orchids, I already loved them. I had a few which I was carrying with me for a few years wherever I moved, but these were all Phalaenopsis. So I went a little bit out of my comfort zone and I purchased myself a Dendrobium Phalaenopsis type, which I absolutely loved, and it just happened to be the Polar Fire. And well, that's where it all started. However, the one you see right now is not my original Polar Fire. I sadly lost that one, and I will tell you how I lost it because it actually taught me a lot of things about the Dendrobium Phalaenopsis. This is one of those cases in which I actually have stuff filmed. I documented pretty much its evolution. So this is now my original one. I purchased this one a year ago and I'm lucky to have a wonderful display this year, and it's just warming my heart because I remember my original Polar Fire. So first, let's start by saying that Polar Fire is a commercial name. I believe it is given by Sanook, and at one point I shared with you their website. They have, let's say, the most popular hybrids on the market. Check it down below in the description if you want to know at least the commercial names of your Dendrobium Phalaenopsis types. They are widely spread in Europe. I don't know about other territories, but at least here you will find their hybrids pretty much everywhere. Now, I did find the proper name for this orchid. It is called, and I'm sure I'm gonna butcher the name, so excuse me for that, this is the Hyung Beauty. If any of you know how to correctly pronounce it, let me know in the comments down below. Polar Fire, though, is a little bit easier to pronounce for us Europeans, and because of Sanook, pretty much all of us know it as Polar Fire. So as I was saying, I purchased this guy in 2013 around Valentine's, which was in February, and I started my YouTube channel in April in the very same year, and it was still in bloom. It was very, very long lasting, and you will see some footage from back then. In the meantime, I did purchase another one, the Burana Green, which is again a staple for my collection. I just acquired him this year as well. The Polar Fire was just the first though. So 2 months later, he still had blooms, he still looked pretty. I did some videos on him, and afterwards he did actually rebloom, I think a couple of times. The last time that I filmed him, I think it was around one of the giveaways, 1,000 subscriber giveaway, something of the sorts, or 5,000, I don't remember, but you'll see footage on the screen right now. So caring for him was actually not all that difficult. It appeared to be really easy to care for, really easy going, an alternative to the traditional Phalaenopsis, absolutely, because it just didn't pose any problems. And by the way, if you're curious, the Polar Fire is not a fragrant orchid. Spikes don't branch out and typically doesn't last as long in bloom as a Phalaenopsis, but it is actually a really good alternative for a Phalaenopsis. But what I loved most about it was the gradient pink that faded into white, and I think you all know by now I love myself some contrasts, especially white with something else. I think I would even love white and proper purple. So even though no fragrance, he was indeed one of my favorites, and it was easy to care for. Until one day, and I actually have footage of this, when I had an unwelcome visitor. The spider mite. And for those of you who are older on my channel, you know my battles with spider mites. It was the red one, the false spider mite, not the one that creates webs. And as it just so happens, Dendrobium Phalaenopsis is on the menu, is among the most favorite orchids of the false spider mite. And my first infestation, or actually where I discovered I had spider mites, was on another Dendrobium Phalaenopsis type. It was just sealing, it wasn't the Polar Fire. And it took me quite a while to realize what issues I had, what type of pest I had. I don't know if I correlated secondary infections with spider mite. I think I didn't. because my Dendrobium Phalaenopsis, including the polar fire, started to have this really weird spotting on the leaves. The leaves started to yellow and fall. It didn't happen before, so I knew something was wrong, but researching articles, I was reading that it was a fungal or bacterial infection. So I made a video about using cinnamon oil as a fungicide or bactericide. I tried treating my Dendrobium Phalaenopsis with it, and of course, it didn't really solve my issues. And I was really freaking out. I started to unpot the orchids, check the root system, pot them back again. Overall, the bottom line is that I really stressed out my Dendrobium Phalaenopsis. They lost their leaves anyway, and because I kept moving them and repotting them, I messed around too much with their root system, and in the end, I lost all of my Dendrobium Phalaenopsis. I had 3 of them, plus that seedling. So 3 mature Dendrobiums and 1 seedling. And that scared me a little because it was the very first time when I was dealing with an epidemic of something that I didn't really know how to treat. I was not actually correlating the fact that it might be a secondary infection and that spider mites actually really love Dendrobium Phalaenopsis. Afterwards, as I learned more about the spider mite, the red one, pieced it all together, and I know what happened to my orchids. It was a secondary infection because of the spider mite, but it looked so weird. It did not look like the Phalaenopsis infection. The Phalaenopsis actually developed the orchid flake virus. It looked totally different. These guys didn't get the orchid flake virus. I don't know if they're immune, but it didn't show. What they did get was secondary infections, those black marks on the leaves, which had devastating effects. Now, if I were to do it all again, of course, I would just hang on to them, not repot them, not treat them with all sorts of stuff as fungicides, and hang on to them even without leaves. Because as it turns out, these orchids are pretty hardy, even if they lose leaves. If they lose leaves and roots, that's a different story, but now I know better. It's a little bit too late for my poor Dendrobium Polar Fire. And ever since then, you might already know that I don't have many videos with Dendrobium Phalaenopsis in my archive. And this is because I got really scared after that experience. I was under the impression that they were sensitive, that at any given point the leaves will fall, and that's that. It's obviously not true, and now that I have at least 2 more years of experience with these guys, I know they're hardy, but back then it was scary. So for 3 years or so, I didn't purchase myself any Dendrobium Phalaenopsis until one day 2 years ago when I felt really sorry for the Dendrobiums IKEA was selling. And you already know by now I do have quite a collection of Dendrobium Phalaenopsis. And last year I finally found my polar fire once again. So last year I found him once again, the original type of polar fire I had, and he's been doing amazing ever since. And I think you've seen him in my previous video. He is very healthy at the moment. I don't have spider mites on this guy. Luckily now I know how to treat spider mites, and that lesson in the past, as much as it scared me actually, and as much as I feel sorry for my polar fire, it's one of my childhood orchids. Let's call them like that. I think this is a good way to express how I feel about it. So that experience, even though I learned a lot from it, it kind of stuck with me. But now I'm very confident that I can grow these orchids, that I can treat whatever spider mite infestation I might have in the future. And you know, from time to time they do appear. And I've waited a lot of time to actually make a proper care video for these guys because I just needed to get over that experience. I needed to observe them and I needed to properly learn their quirks, just so I give you the best information that I can. So stay tuned, a tutorial on Dendrobium Phalaenopsis will come pretty soon, because I'm happy to say that this is not the only orchid which is performing very well from this family. I do have quite a few. Soon you're gonna see them all in beautiful bloom, and I'm gonna share with you all that I have learned in these past years, all of their quirks, what I think will work best with them, and so on and so forth. But it's funny to look back now and realize that I didn't really purchase these orchids because of that experience, even though, yeah, I was having success with others, with Phalaenopsis, with Oncidiums. These guys, they were always, no, I don't want to have them. Maybe I don't even like them so much. I really do actually. And in this climate, in a warm and tropical climate, I think they're the perfect orchid, as we will talk about in the care video. I always love them. I kind of fear them due to that experience. But now I'm very confident that I can do great with them. I think everybody can do great with them because they are easy orchids. They're very robust. They have their weaknesses, of course, but if you know what they are, I think your experience with them will be a lot better. And it all started with my little Dendrobium Polar Fire, which I'm still sad about, to be fully honest with you, because he was my first Dendrobium. And I hope you've enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for a complete care guide for these guys. I'm waiting for the other ones to open just so I have a more pretty show in the video. And you know the drill, like or dislike this video below. Subscribe for more orchid videos, tutorials, care tutorials, repottings, and everything related to orchids. Turn on notifications if you'd like to be notified whenever I upload a new video. And if you're curious to know what pots or media or other things I use with my orchids, expand the description, I list everything there. And with that said, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye!